it has to be simple. And as I sometimes consult on a one-on-one basis, or now this is about a year, we're going on Tuesday and Wednesday night meetings. And uh, what always comes to me after one of these meetings is that there are only a very small number of things that we do to achieve our design. Now there's other things like I'm going to put a cove molding on this and miter the corner and stuff. But for essential design, there's only two things that you're doing. Uh, you create or maybe you insert um, something like a board or a drawer or a door, and in that process, you take it and you make it the correct size. You size it, part of the creation process, and then within in its space, you put it in the proper position. You locate it there, and of course that requires um, some container to help you manage this thing. And for SketchList, the highest level container is the project. That's your whatever you're making, and below that are assemblies. So those you can think of them as sub projects maybe, but I come to think of those as organizers. They help me organize my boards and they help me manage my boards. So you create a project, you create an assembly, you may create a door or a drawer, um, and then you put boards in it. You just put boards in, you cut them to size, and you locate them. So there's really two things: you're inserting and you are locating. There are only three tools in SketchList that you use to do that, and they are integrated. So if you use one, you're automatically changing the other, but they're independent. So if you only in your whole life ever wanted to design woodworking projects in SketchList, you could easily do it only with the spreadsheet. In fact, I know people that do that. They never even touch the design area and use the dots or move things around. They just type and do the spreadsheet. So three tools and two steps. Okay. One thing that is important to know, fundamental, is that if when you're working, you have to be at the proper level of work. So if I want to create a drawer, I'll put the front in and the bottom and the back and everything. I have to be at the work level of the drawer. I can't not be there. It's like the drawer is an organizer or a container. If I want to put things into it, I have to be at that level. In version 4, we had this idea that you went down to the lower right corner and you click the level of the hierarchy you're on. Now what you do is you just click what you want. So if I want to put something in this left door, I just click door and it opens up. So it's there. But we'll come back to the level. SketchList users know about the levels. Newer users won't have to know about it because it's pretty well integrated. Okay. Just the steps that we go through. The first thing we put in is an assembly. Now, in order to put this assembly in, I needed to be at the project level because assemblies go into projects. So I just clicked either up here on, I guess up there on test, and I was able to add the assembly, and that's really all it takes. And similar manner, I want to insert a board. That's that first step we're talking about, insert the board. I make sure that I'm at the assembly level here or up here. You can see that assembly 0 is somewhat highlighted. And I click the board icon, which is this up here in the upper left-hand corner. And I'm going to do all this in SketchList in just a few minutes. And the new board form opens. And I wanted to do it this way because this is fairly different than version 4 was, and there's a lot of information here. So you create a new board. You're going to insert that board, which is step 1, And now you give it a name. You can here with this down arrow, if there were a lot of containers in which to place the board, you could just select it here and put it there. So it's kind of a safety thing. Then you pick for that board, you pick the material you're going to use. In this case, I've chosen the cherry. If I wanted to, and what happens is as you're developing your project, the materials that you are using most often populate this list. And we, along with the beta test people, decided that 4 was probably a good number. If you have a material that's not here, you click the select material button and a material window will open. You could pick the material that you want to do. Select material. The grain direction is pretty important for several reasons. One is if you're doing the 3D image on your screen, you want to make it look right. And secondly, we use grain when we're putting together the cut list and the optimized layout diagram. It's obvious on the layout diagram if the grain of a 4x8 sheet runs the long way, and you want your the side of your cabinet to have the grain run up and down, you have to tell us what it is so we can put it on that sheet properly. So those get done in version 4. They just get done in a different place. And I chose to put them all in one place because in the old days, people would forget things. They would go along and it would be doing a design and forget to put the grain. And when they go to the optimizer, it was like, oh my goodness. So we put everything here. Now it's not uh, as we go along. It's not there now, but the next time you insert a board, it's going to pick up these details, assuming that you're making the same board, and then you just have to change things. So this will speed up a bit. The key information or board name, well, they're all key. Board name and the size. So I'm just saying width, height, and how thick is this? Then what we're doing, and again, for the imaging and the cut list and the optimizing, we're asking you then to say which of these is the thickness of this board. Now, I'm inclined to say I would always take the smallest size and by default make that thickness. I don't know, maybe we'll do that later, but right now it's just a check and you would just do it once. What happens when I go to add the board, but SketchList, it does a couple of checks. First of all, it compares the board to the material that you specify to make sure that it fits. Because if it doesn't fit, you've got a problem when you're trying to cut it. So if this was say 110 inches tall, and I click add a board, the message would come up and say, you're trying to cut a 110-inch board out of a 96-inch board. You can't do that. Do you want to try again? Something like that. And then the other thing it does is, as version 4 does, it checks to make sure that the board will fit into the container. And if it doesn't, this just sort of stays there and you get a chance to re-enter. But it's this information about the board now being gathered in one place, which eventually will be defaulted to the last information that you entered, and the checking happening here. That's new in SketchList. So then I go, all right, so concepts. So we talk a lot, and when I start up SketchList, we'll make something. And I'm always talking about the sizes, height, width, bottom, front, and so forth. And a while back, it occurred to me that I don't know what night it was, but one night I was talking about the width of a board, And the person, one of the people had really didn't have a good grasp on what I was saying, or why I thought it would work that way. So I just wanted to back up a little bit tonight and say the size, it's so obvious. Yeah, what's the size of the board? You know, it's this wide. And that's a correct answer. Bing. From my point of view, from the software's point of view, the width of this board is the distance between its left edge and its right edge. Again, not calculus, right? The height is from the bottom to the top, and the depth would be from the front to the back. And that is edge to edge. That's not too hard. Um, One of the ways you change it, you talk about three tools, being the dots as one of the tools, are the red dots. The red dots allow you to resize things. So in order to open these little forms, what I did was I right clicked my mouse on that red dot and this opens up. And it's, oh, I'm sorry, that's a corner. Oh, I got the wrong thing here. Let me go back, but I can do this from the top. So I click the red dot here, and it says, essentially, this is saying that red dot is 36 inches from the bottom of the assembly. And if I wanted to change the size, I just type in 24 and OK, and this board would shrink, and now the height would become 24. And that's true with any of the red dots. If you right click it, this form opens and you can make the change. The blue dot is the corner. That's how you locate things. So if I right click the blue dot, this form opens, and say I wanted to shift this board to the left 2 inches and to the back by 4 inches. If I type in 2 here and 4 there and click OK, that board will immediately move over. So that's the function of we inserted with the new board form. We've resized it with the red dot, and we moved it with the blue dot. Okay. And this is another blue dot thing. Just a repeat, actually. Okay. The other tool is the form. This is what's on the upper right-hand corner of SketchList. And first of all, it is the calculator of SketchList. I do get emails from people saying, or comments saying, wow, this is really good software. I like it. But I'm finding I'm using my phone calculator all the time to generate these numbers. That you shouldn't have to do that, because this is the calculator. And the way it works, the two outsides are the location values, and the inside is the size. So if I wanted to, for example, I have this board, I have it, the left is 0 right now. If I wanted to move that to the right by 10 inches, I would type in a 10, and this right, I would click on that button, and that would become 34. And that's just consistent. If I wanted to move the front back, whatever, 5 inches, type in 5 inches, click back, and that value would change. So I'm moving it using the form, okay? And the size is, it's really it relies on all three of these. So if I wanted to change the height to 24, what I would do is say, I might change the top value to 24 and click the height button, or I might change the bottom value to 12 and click the height button, and the height of the board will change, and you'll see that in just a second. So it's a calculator. And I skipped over this, but if I wanted to subtract 4 3/16 from that, if I put my cursor in there, eventually it'll highlight differently, and I just say -4 and whatever number I made up, and then click the appropriate other button, and that would be taken into effect. And then finally, the spreadsheet. the board, the form is, it's one object at a time, and it gives you some fairly, it's very clear. You know what you're doing. But there are times when I want to know, for example, I take that bottom rail, and I want to know, oops, let me go back. I want to put one board somewhere or size it the same as another board. Well, here's a chance I have. I go up and I look and I say, wow, the stiles or these rails, they're all 4 inches to the left. So if I want to make another rail go 4 inches to the left, what I would do is uh, say I want to make this style a rail. So I would just highlight that 17, type in a 4, and I click then the right button if I want to shift the board over, or the width button if I want to change the width. So in the form, you have these buttons and one element at a time. Here you have a lot of elements, and the column headings become uh, the button. So you can change things like that. All right. So any questions, any backups, any redos? I've completely and succinctly explained all of this. I'm not sure about that, but I'll keep going. Um, this is, if you're using version 5, you know this is the new opening screen. And you have two choices at this point. You can either open a project or start a new project. And I'm going to start a new project, but I want to look at open project first, because if I click open project, um, I haven't gone through and put in the images, but if I had, you would see little images to remind you what the projects look like, and that's fine. And the text is a little small. I apologize for that. Along the bottom, if you can't read it, the first text here with the down arrow says import project. So if you want to bring in a project from another copy of SketchList somewhere, even version 4, you would use that. And if you've done an import before, you know how that works. I select a project, then export becomes available. If I want to migrate, say you want to bring your whole version 4 database to version 5, you pick this migrate button. What'll happen is this opens, and we're working on making this a little smoother. And because this requires you to find your old database. And if you can't do that, um, I understand. And if you let me know, I can send you a document to exactly show you where the database is. And then restore backup. If you get along and you decide that something went wrong and you want to use yesterday's design, you can go to restore backup to do that. So I'm going to start a new project. Test 48 and width is 36 and depth is 12. And you know, if you want to keep a note there, oh, you know what? I get that little yellow flasher up there. It's saying you've got test, so it has to be a unique name. So there we go. And so what's happened is SketchList has opened this project called Test 12, and it automatically inserted an assembly for me just to save me a step. So that's the insert step. And if I want to take that and delete it, just delete it here. And how would I insert my own assembly? Go up here, this little thing that looks like, I don't know, dice or something, in the top upper left, click on that and say add assembly, and the assembly comes in. Um, that's the insert step. Now we talked about there being two steps: insert, which includes a size, and locate. So I can, again, right dot. I'm just right click that red dot and say I'm going to enter 36, and that's going to be the new height. And I can right click, say this dot, and say the width is going to be 12, like that. And I've um, inserted and resized. And to some extent, I picked the default location of 000. If I wanted to do that again, I'd just add an assembly. And this time I'm going to say left is 26, like that. So it's going to shift the other way. And that's it. I'm happy with that size. Now I want to locate this. I want to put these two together. So what that means is if this dot, that location dot, has a left of 12, and this dot have the same location values, I have I have an issue with my mouse sometimes. There it is. So here, if I said 12 here and say okay, that would just suck over there, and I got my second assembly located, and um, and that's how it works. The idea is that the blue dots tell me in 3 dimensions where I am there. So say I wanted to change that around, I come up here, red dot, say I want the height of this overall to be 24 inches, like that. And but I want to have them for some reason be equal on the top. So I grab that blue dot value, copy it, because my goal is to make this blue dot value the same, paste it, and there you go. Okay. So that's my container. The assembly is what I'm going to use to manage my bookcase or my box or whatever it is I'm making tonight. I come back out here and say, okay, uh, 24 like that. Now I want to build this out. So the two steps: I'm going to insert the board, set its size, and then locate it. So this time I'm going to take the board icon, which is that, and click it to open the form. My first board is going to be left side, and I'm going to use this pine material, like that. The grain direction is going to go with the height up and down. So the width of this is also going to be the thickness, because that is what I want. I want that to look like that. And I'm going to set that to be 3/4. The height will be, how tall is this? This thing is 36 inches tall. So I say 34. And the depth is 11. Add the board, and there it is. Now I want to move that board. I want to position it. But I am still, you notice on the upper left-hand corner, I'm still in the assembly level. I can't really do anything to that board. So what I want to do is just click the board that I want to work on, and I drop into the proper level, and I can come to here and say, well, I want to put the front of this uh, 3/4 of an inch back, because I'm going to put maybe a frame on it, something like that. And um, and I might move that over to the left a little bit. So I've been using the blue dots for a while. Um, Sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. Now I'm selecting the board, and you see in the form on the right-hand side, you got the information about the board, its name, and that sort of thing. I can just close that up, and I say, well, uh, I want to make that. I'm going to move that board over so that I want it 2 inches from the left. So I put in a 2. I click the right button not the correct button. Well, I both the right button and the correct button, and it moved over. So now what that is saying is that the left edge of this board is 2 inches from the left edge of the assembly, and so on. So at that point, what I can do is do another board. Why not? So I'm going to insert the board. And as I say, that the design goal is to just have this filled in with the same information that we had on the left side board, but it's not there yet. So this is right side, same material, same grain direction, height, width, 7.5, which is the thickness. Height is, and again, why I like the spreadsheet is I can look down at the spreadsheet and say the left side height is 34. So I want this to be 34. And the depth is 11. Oops. Is 11. And then add the board. So that is, that's the insert and size step. Now I'm going to position it. So the assembly is 24 inches wide. So I want this to be that right blue dot. I want that to be 24 minus the 2-inch overhang inches from the left of the assembly, which is what I have. Okay. So now if I look at this board, the distance between the left of the board and the left of the assembly is 21 and a quarter. And this is 22, which is what I wanted. So that's just something that you kind of want to know, is that it's always from the left of the container. I think sometimes people think that whatever that distance is, 21, is that between those two boards. It's not. Everything is referenced to the point where left, bottom, and front are all equal to 0. Then it occurs to me that, again, looking at the spreadsheet down below, I look here and say, the front of the left side is 3/4. So the front of this is 3/4. Just put that in there. Now my choice is, what do I want to do? Do I want to change the depth, or do I want to push it back? Well, I want the depth. And then you'll see that the left side and the right side are the same except for their position. You look here and say, well, the left side, its left value is 2 inches from the left, and the right side, its right value is 2 inches from the right. So my design's going okay. All right. Any questions or? Nope. Yep.
I've got a question about assemblies. If you realize that the board that you added should have been in assembly 2 instead of assembly 1, how do you move it to the other assembly?
The best way to do that is just delete it and put it in the correct place. One way you can do it, if it's a complex board and you've got a lot of holes and things on it, you can actually save it to the library.
And Dave, just a quick maybe suggestion too, because I've worked with this obviously from almost the beginning from you. But with the general spreadsheet, is there a way that the columns could automatically resize themselves to fit the text and the numbers? Like look at the left there, it's 21 and 1 ... instead of us having to manually do that.
Already been done. I think you're going to see that this weekend.
Oh, great. Awesome.
It's supposed to be here, but stuff. So with.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now that was actually picked up like on day 1 by the beta test group and got put on our list, but obviously we haven't got there. But that's exactly right. It should find out the biggest width that you need and go to it automatically. All right. So just moving along a little bit more in terms of the kind of the ideas, is that we have these two sideboards for our bookcase. I want to put in the third board. Insert and size that board. Insert and size it. So I'm going to pick the new board, and this is going to be called bottom. Oops, OM. And same material right there. The width I don't care about because I can do that with the tools much quicker than I can trying to figure it out by hand. So I make a dummy width up. As long as it fits in the assembly, I don't care what that is. And again, the depth is 11. And this time, the height is going to be the thickness. And then the grain direction will be the width. Go add the board. Okay. So now that did, to create the insert part of it. I've got it somewhat sized, but not completely, because as an easy way to size it. So kind of using my words in English or whatever language you speak, I want the left edge of this board to butt against the right edge of that board. And the way I do that is I find the value for the right edge of that board by right clicking there. There you go. And I'm going to copy that value. And then I'm going to take that corresponding point there and then paste it. All right. So now that actually was pretty slick because it got it to the left and it got it to the right. And because it's the same width, I think that back is 11 3/4. I click that, find the back of that is 11 3/4. The only part is missing is that I'm not connected to that. And all I have to do is grab that red dot with my mouse. What I did was I moved to a mouse that's not hurting my elbow, but it doesn't do design. All right. And then I want to take that off the floor a couple of inches. So I just come to the form, say, the bottom of that board is going to be 2 inches off of the floor, like that. Okay, that same idea. So the width of this board is the distance, or the distance between the left edge and the right edge. It makes sense, but just so if I change this, say I change this to 4, and I wanted to change the width for some reason, click that, then that changes. So say I change this to 12. And click the width. These 3 buttons and these text boxes are all interrelated. So I want to take that to be 12 and move that back out here and say this is 2 3/4. And I want to change the width to accommodate that. Then I look here real quick and say 21 1/4 is the distance between the left of that board and the left of the assembly. So I could make this right. I forget what it was, 21 3/4, 21 1/4, I think. Something like that. I'll find out in a minute. Yep. Okay. And then the final part of this is the final board type. And come up here and say, here it is. Now this is going to be the back. And I'm going to go to that same material. So where was I? Backboard. Okay. So the width, again, I don't care. I'm just guesstimating at that. Same with that. But I know this depth is 3/4. And I know that's going to be the thickness. So now even though it's at the front of the icon, we're really interested in the orientation. So that's what it's going to look like. I come back here, and that is it's inserted. It's not really sized. It's not really located, but that's not that much of an issue because I can take that, right click that, copy, do this, come here. Oops. I want to get a slightly better look at that. Come here, right click that and paste like that. So that's really the locate. And now I can do, if I hold down my shift key and drag that red dot, it's going to snap against that board, look here, coming to the spreadsheet, say, well, the top of that sideboard is 34. So I want the top of this board to be 34, changing the height like that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. If I want to come back to the project level, I'll say one other thing. Isn't a natural need is then to resize this. It, you know, it happens all the time. Either you change your mind or you made a mistake or whatever. And the resizing, if I take that assembly and I say, again, I've got to be, if I want to work on the assembly, I've got to be at the project level, because that's what's in assemblies, or what's in projects or assemblies. So I see this assembly and I select it, and I want to make this 36 inches wide and changing the right value. So that might not be what you had intended, because when you're changing the containers, the containers do not change the contents. And the changing of containers is always going away from the point of origin, 0, 0, 0. So if you, it's going to go that way, it's going to go up, it's going to go back. You can't really add space. Well, there's a tool to add space to the left, but this isn't it. And I wouldn't get into that tool tonight, but we will over the next couple of meetings. So I'm just going to Control Z out of that and say, well, what if I really did want to make this a different size and include the contents? Well, if I right click that red dot, and I can say the new width is going to be 35, like that. Okay, so you see that all the materials. Now, something to know is that when you're doing that kind of resize, you see that pink line or plane or whatever box. The rule for resizing is, and this just happens to be on the horizontal, vertical, or the Z direction, the depth, all have their pink boxes. The default is that's where the splitting happens. And that's halfway, that's the middle point. And the rule is anything that pink box touches is going to be increased in size to the right by the increase amount. At that point, I think it was 13 degrees or inches, whatever. Anything that pink plane touches gets cut. And you can shrink too, so it would shrink there. Anything that is to the right of the plane and not touching it gets moved by that amount. And anything that's to the left and doesn't touch the plane just stays. So that's how we do that. And I think that you've probably seen this in version 4 as well. But I just, I'm talking about resizing and locating and things, and I thought that would be something you should know about now. That was my intention for this hour, was to go back a little bit, talk about some of the reasons that I did what I did and we did what we did.